All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is the last part of circulation. It's all about the fetal development and how the circulation in the fetus is a little bit different than that of a child and adult. Okay, so let's get going here. So first of all, you guys got to know that fetuses don't breathe. And I put breathe in quotation marks because they're not actively taking air into their lungs and releasing it. They get their nutrients through the umbilical cord. The reason why it can't is that lungs are too dense. Okay? So this means that the tissue is too thick for the actual gases to be able to diffuse through. A bit of blood has to go to the lungs in order for it to provide nutrients to the lung tissue. But besides that, the blood doesn't bother going to the lungs very much because it doesn't need to provide it with any gas exchange. Okay, it gets its gases from the umbilical cords. So oxygenated blood comes through the umbilical cord, which we know is joined to the placenta through the pretty much your belly button, and then that's attached to the uterine wall, and then also from the uterine wall there's vessels that go to the female, which that's where the nutrients are coming from. Okay, so let's look at the three vessels. The first is the umbilical vein. So what this is, it's blood with oxygen and nutrients that go to the fetal heart. This blood bypasses the liver, and here's one of the big terms here, and it's called the venous or the ductus venous. Okay, pretty much the vein duct. And it bypasses the liver, so it doesn't actually go through it, and we'll talk about why right now. The big why is that veins have low blood pressure, like we talked about. So going through all of the capillaries in the liver would further reduce that blood pressure, and it would reduce it so much that that venous blood wouldn't ever actually make it to the heart. So instead of going through all of this network of capillaries, it just takes the big overpass and it goes straight past the liver and into the heart. So the result, though, is which is a negative, is that there's no filtering of the blood by the fetus. Okay, so that's why things like alcohol coming from the adult could be very harmful to the developing fetus. The second and third one, there's two umbilical arteries. These ones both branch off of the iliac arteries, so those ones just below the hips, and it takes waste out of the fetus towards the placenta for gas exchange. Foramen ovale, so here's another structure, just like the venous ductus, ductus venous. The fetal heart valve between the right and the left atrium. So there's just a little valve here, so it's like a little sneak. And why would you want to sneak from the right atrium to the left atrium? Well, because if you go into the right ventricle, that's where you should be going out of the ventricle and into the lungs. But we don't want to go to the lungs, and so there's a bypass there. So just like we were saying here, it reroutes oxygenated blood from the right atrium to the left atrium. So it's directly straight across here. And then the third structure that we care about is called the ductus arteriosus. And this connects the pulmonary trunk directly to the aorta. So as you can see right here, same thing. What this does is another lung bypass. It's nice because we want some blood going to the lung tissue to support some gas, not some gas change, but to bring gases to the lungs so it doesn't die. But the most of it, we just want it directly going to the head and the lower body through the aorta. Okay. And then the last thing is the baby's first breath. As soon as the density is reduced, the lungs will expand. So in other words, the lungs expand when the density reduces. The lungs can now facilitate gas exchange. So once that density, once that baby comes out, the first breath in is going to allow for that gas exchange to start. And then the change in density triggers the two main structures in the heart, the foramen ovale and the ductus arteriole to close, and then that facilitates normal blood circulation like we've gone over before. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to write them on down and have yourselves a wonderful night.